Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting of the Hindley Holmes and Royle Building Committee to order at 6:00 p.m. on August 20th, 2025. First order of business, as usual, is to approve the minutes from our last meeting on July 17th. If I could get a motion. Rob moves, Sarah seconds, all in favor. Great. Doesn't look like we have any members of the public for public comment. Couple things from my standpoint. This is our last meeting before the start of the school year. The teachers report tomorrow, which is big news. We had an OAC meeting earlier today, and it sounds like the teachers are going to be able to report. The furniture is in all the new wings. The building department and the fire department are good to go with allowing the faculty to come in. And then a week from today, school starts. So we'll get a more specific update from Scott in a little bit. But in terms of milestones, we're about to hit one, which is the start of a new school year, meaning we've got basically one school year to go to get to completion. One thing we were thinking of doing, similar to what we did last year, which is on the school open house night, which is the 10th of September, is have one member of the building committee and one member of Scott's team at each of the schools, just there to answer questions, nothing formal, no kind of presentation, but just there as the parents, if the parents want to ask questions. So I know I'm available that evening and I'm happy to be at one of the schools. So, and nobody needs to commit on this meeting, but if I could get at least two other building committee members to volunteer to attend that open house, that would be great. If it's most convenient, maybe it's one of the schools where one of your kids is going and you're going to be there anyway. And then I can cover. Last year I covered Royle, but if we could get somebody to cover Holmes and Hindley, or however we want to do it, I just need 2 volunteers. The other thing we were thinking of doing, and we discussed with Dr. Byrne today, was at some point in the fall having what amounts to a ribbon cutting or grand opening or celebration of the new construction. It doesn't really make sense to try to do that at the same time as the open house, because the parents that are going to be there are going to be really focused on meeting their kids' teachers, meeting with the principals, and it's not going to be appropriate to do something that would otherwise be a distraction. So we are going to work with Dr. Byrne and with Kevin and with the principals, and it'll probably be 3 separate events, one at each of the schools. And one of the thoughts we had was that we would invite the immediate neighbors, the same people that we've been, Scott in particular, Scott's team has been communicating with as the project's been going on. These folks have been very patient. They've been living next to active construction sites now for 2 years. They've got 1 more to go, and we'd like to invite them so they can see what's been going on and what their patience has in effect bought them, if you will. That's to come. The other thing is we still do owe an update on the proposed additional scope. Frankly, I asked Scott and the KG&D guys to put that to the side while they charged ahead to get the schools ready for next week for the kids to come in. So I think best case we'll have something to report at our meeting in September on that. And then I think while I guess this sort of ties to the financial report, which we'll get to in a little bit, we'll hold that to the financial report, which is just kind of an update on the state reimbursement process and how we're doing relative to the state. I know Kevin was going to give us an update on that as we get into the financial report. Um, before we get into turning it over to Scott to get an update on the project, there's been, Scott, maybe you can give us a little detail because there's been a huge amount of progress in the last month since we met. Anything from anybody in the committee, questions, input, et cetera, before I turn it over to Scott? Okay, with that, Scott, go ahead.
All right, great. Tom, I think I might need to borrow that baby the next time I have an inspection over at Holmes.
Hey, buddy.
It could only help my situation over
Yeah, I'm single parenting right now through bedtime, so
there. I think that would definitely work for getting me out of trouble over
he'll be casting my votes.
there.
Here you go. Perfect.
So it has been a while since we last met. It feels like it wasn't that long ago, but a lot has gotten done. So as Chris was saying, teachers will be coming back to school tomorrow. We obviously, like I think I kind of let everyone know last time we met, is that we were going to really be going down to the wire, right down to the last minute, and that is kind of where we were. So today the building officials came through all three schools. Um, gave us about a 98% blessing on this. They're going to come back in the morning. I think at Holmes and Hindley, Royle, I think we're all set. Um, but they did want us to add, I think, 3 exit signs, Kevin, I believe at Royle is where we landed with that.
That's right.
The hurdles we had at Holmes today, again, it was the fire marshal with, taking care of existing problems and existing walls and corridors of the existing school. Was one of the bigger problems they had. So we're still trying to get over that hurdle. But I guess we're in good shape at all 3. Like I said, we're 98% there. As I think I told everyone, like in the OAC meetings, I suspect, they're going to come back again at the beginning of the week, before kids come back, just to make sure everything is all set. Again, they're just being very thorough. They come with, I think, every fire marshal and every building inspector to each school. So there's like 7 people that walk through. So they don't make it easy on us to get through the inspection. It's kind of, not really normal.
But is it fair to say that, what we had planned to get done in this phase of the work is
Yeah.
essentially done, and kind of between now and the start of school next week, it's basically cleanup and punch list and
Yep.
things of that nature?
Yep. Really, the only thing left in these spaces is going to be, finish cleaning and painting. Other than that, they're completed. Fire alarms all work, egress exits are in place, egress paths are all in place in the exteriors of the building. There's no issues with any of that. Really, like I said, the stuff at the schools, like, they came through Royle today and, decided we needed more exit signs, which is, they've been in these buildings a lot. And just today, we need more exit signs, so we're going to get them more exit signs, right? It's kind of a moving target, and we just try to do our best to manage that. But the spaces will all look great. I think it's going to be a great experience. The teachers, I'm sure, will be here bright and early. Kevin told me they'll be here bright and early in the morning to be in the school. It's going to be a big change for them because we moved our temporary walls. So we have new temporary walls in places we didn't have them last year. So the school's got a different look. The additions, new additions are open at all 3 schools. So some teachers will be getting into brand new classrooms. One of the things I think, and I know Matt has gone over this with Ross, we don't have as big as issue here at Royle. There's a little bit at Holmes, but some of the work that we've done, and we've put in new, unit ventilators in some classrooms, and some classrooms have the new cassettes for air conditioning, but they're not operational yet for different reasons, as some of the stuff at Hindley, for instance, was really phased out for further phases 3 and 4, but because of the boiler transition that the district had asked us to take on early, because the boilers were failing at Hindley, we really touched every classroom. Now we've gotten all the equipment in, we've gotten the piping in, but some of it's not hooked up. The boilers are not operational yet. They will be operational by heating season in October, but right now they're not completed. So that's our next step for us is to get that piping work in the boiler room completed. It's been being worked on all summer. There's just more to do. And on the AC side, some of these things are not hooked up to the heat pumps that run those as well. Or some of them are, and they're just not ready to be, fully commissioned yet. Which we are working on all of that as well. So some of these classrooms are still going to have their air conditioning units in the windows like they had previously, when these teachers come back. And then the heating will go on in October when it's ready for heating season. I think Hindley, like I said, is going to be the biggest one for that because we, again, touched every room in that school this summer. And going into phases, like I said, ahead of time. So there's still going to be some work for us to catch up on when those phases actually do take place. But everything has been put back together.
And is it fair to say that Royle is Royle the only school where there's material new construction to be done outside? That's the only school that has a new wing to be built, new
Yeah,
addition to be built, correct?
that's correct for this summer. And then next summer, Holmes will have the GLC, the library
Right.
edition will go on there and beginning in April next year.
Okay.
So that work here at Royle has started. The foundation is going in the ground for that addition. Footings were poured. I don't know, were the buildings demoed the last time we met?
I think so.
Okay, so yeah, because the building came down, the portables went away, the hole was dug, footings are in, foundation walls are being formed as we speak. They'll get poured next week. So we're full steam ahead on those additions. Our schedule showing us getting steel set in September for that. So we'll be off to the races and rolling with that addition as well.
Cool.
And then we're all working, we touched on it a little bit in the OAC meeting, but basically, we've started those next phases in all the schools. So behind the temporary walls, the demolition was done over the summer. I'd say probably 90% of the framing has gone in these spaces behind those walls, and we've started doing some rough-in work as far as mechanicals go with HVAC and piping and wiring. So those are, while we were finishing the spaces, we actually were also progressing on the next phase as well.
And is that work that can be done while school is in session or okay?
Yep, we'll be working in the schools behind in our space behind our temporary walls during school. It'll be very similar to so we had a little bit of that happening at Hindley and we had the GLC here at Royle happening
Right.
that way inside the existing building. So the principals and students have lived through that already. They'll probably take a little getting used to again after being off for the summer, but we'll be like that old thorn in the side before you know it.
Right. Any questions from the group for Scott or Matt? Thank you for that. Great. Just in the amount of progress literally day to day as I've driven past the schools has been remarkable. As you guys get ready to turn the schools over back to the district for the start of school. So thank you for that.
It looked a few weeks ago, it did not look positive, but I knew that we could get it to where we are today. And I'm glad that it came together, and I'm glad nobody hit the panic button and let us just get the job done. I appreciate that
Yeah.
from everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Scott. And, just getting it to where it was today is a monumental task. And we certainly appreciate it at the district. We're going to have a presence at all three buildings tomorrow. Central Administrator Kevin and I will be over at Holmes, and then some others going to the other buildings just to be there with the principals, supporting them as they welcome the teachers back.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there are going to be some teachers who are going to have to, find their way to new classrooms, right? I mean, the schools are going to look different than when they left. So.
Yep, and we had phasing plans done with the teachers as well as to where, their swing spaces moved and teachers are moving from, because we took over, good portions of these buildings.
Yep.
And I think the biggest thing that these teachers and students are going to need to navigate now is where we've taken over bathrooms because they're behind our space, and now there's short bathroom space, and there's a that I think is going to be probably the biggest hurdle for everybody in this phase.
Cool. Sounds great. With that, why don't we move on to the financial update? I think I'd forwarded around what Josh Kaufman had put together. At this point, in rough numbers, we're 2 years into a projected 3-year project, and we've spent about 55% of our total budget. The financial report that Josh produced does not reflect the July pay apps that we're going to take action on this evening. As Scott had indicated at the last meeting, the amount of the individual pay apps is going to go up as we progress, and you'll see that, you've seen that in what we sent around. The July pay apps in the aggregate are about another $6 million. So, in terms of the total, the aggregate numbers that Josh sent around, where he said, we're obligated to spend roughly 54 million of our roughly $100 million budget. If you take into account the July pay app, that's more like 60 million total obligated against our $100 million budget. So we're, about 60% of the way there in terms of spend, and, about 2/3 of the way there in terms of construction schedule. So they kind of match up. I don't know, Eric and Scott and Matt can speak more precisely as to where they think we are in terms of actual construction completion. Are we in that, is that sort of 2/3? Does it sort of match up with that 2/3 similarly, or ahead of that, or
I think
behind
so.
that?
I think so, because these were the bigger phases, right? We had bigger additions that had gone on these buildings.
Yeah.
So I think that lines up. I mean, my original projection, Chris, for the end of the year, December, I think I was projecting us to be like 75%. I think we're going to be between 75 to 80% by December.
In terms of actual scope of work completion?
Scope of work completion. Yeah, that's kind of where I think we're going to be.
Okay. All right. Well, that's optimistic. That's good. And then, looking at the contingency numbers, they continue to look good. We spent only about 15% of the owner's contingency at Hindley and Holmes, and about 25% of the owner's contingency at Royle, and virtually none of the CM contingency, only 4 or 5% at this point. So again, with roughly 60% of the project, that feels pretty good. So I'm not patting ourselves on the back yet. I want to continue to be very, very conservative. Shit can still happen. Sorry for my French.
So I think we're probably in the shit could still happen area, probably not in bad shape. So we ran into a few items in these classrooms. Drain lines that were kind of like more towards the middle of the room that had to get moved. A few things like that, a column that was not modeled or, not thought of to be in the place that it was. So we had some stuff there. So as I told Chris in the OAC meeting today, there is going to be some contingency items, mostly I think on the CM contingency line, because I did have to, make some decisions on some change order work for moving stuff and getting things completed that just didn't fall into people's scope to get us to where we are today. I am catching up on change orders that we've been, pretty busy with just trying to get the work done. So I told Chris, and come September, I'll probably start to get these things reconciled. All this stuff nothing is really huge. It should be all, manageable numbers. I don't expect it to be anything crazy, but there will be some on all 3 schools coming.
Questions on the financial update? I know, Rob, I assume you've been keeping the Board of Finance up to date on things, so.
Yeah, we actually canceled last night's meeting and we're gonna meet on Tuesday, so this is a good
Okay.
report to show them again, which is good.
Okay.
We're right on target.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if there's no questions or comment on that, we can move to actually spending some more money. So we move on to taking action on our July pay applications. The first one I have is for the Holmes Elementary School. It's application number 15, dated July 31st, 2025, in the amount of $234,221.44. If I can get a motion to approve that. Sarah moves, Jameson seconds. All in favor, including Tom's son. Great. The next one is for the Royle Elementary School, pay application number 15 in the amount, dated July 31st, 2025, in the amount of $1,988,711.82. If I can get a motion to approve that, Sarah moves, Rob seconds. All in favor, including young Mr. Harris. Great. The third one is the Hindley Elementary School application number 15, dated July 31st, 2025, in the amount of $1,989,240.82. Sarah moves, Rob seconds. All in favor? Great, thank you. So those are good to go. Those will be with the town. And Rob and Sarah and I will find our way to town hall to sign those so they can be put in process so that Scott can keep his contractors happy. If I didn't do it before we adjourn, honestly, at my age, I forget things pretty easily. I don't know if I introduced Dennis Maroney to the committee. Dennis is going to be the Board of Education liaison, and he's going to be a member of the committee liaising from the Board of Education while Jill is dealing with some stuff on the personal side. So if you haven't met Dennis, he's here on the Zoom. He's a member of the Board of Education, and he's going to be working with us on the committee. So welcome, Dennis.
Hey, Chris. Welcome, Dennis. Hey, Chris, I got a quick one.
Sure.
So we're, great job by everybody getting us ready for school and all that. So realistically, we're a year out from when we want to be completed. We've talked about the contingency money. We talked about wish list. Now that we've put opening for the school behind us, Scott, Eric, I know we talked about this, but we never really moved forward. We had the list. I don't want things to slip past where we can't do them because we run out of time, and before this contingency money goes. So I'm asking the team, if we can revisit that list and try to figure out what's critical or what's important to us from overall aesthetic and functionality of the school. And that means Kevin, because I just don't want to miss an opportunity to do the right thing at the three schools before we, essentially run out of time and money, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Oh, we agree 100%. We had a little bit of a conversation about that this morning. We obviously had put a lot of effort back in June and May talking about this, but we're going to pick this up in September, get some numbers and get some information in front of you so you can make some decisions and any sort of document material that we have to put together and get stuff in front of Scott. We can get in front of them early this fall.
Okay. And I think my charge to you guys would be, I know you just come up for a breath after, running into the ground, but my biggest concern is the time. Is there anything that if we don't jump on immediately that we're going to run out of time and won't be able to do before we, for lack of a term, exit these projects next summer at this time? So that and if we got to fast track something, we fast track it. That's so if we could just start thinking about that.
Or
For the
even to
committee.
put a little bit of a
Right.
finer. I agree with you, Paul, and even to maybe put a little bit of a finer point on it. If there are things where it makes a lot more sense to do sooner rather than later, to identify those so that it doesn't
Right.
screw up the phasing and sequencing of the work.
And Kevin, that means you too. I mean, I want your wish list.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got the list. I think the list is with
Right. I haven't
Eric.
revisited the list in a while. That's my problem. I need to go back and look at it.
Yeah,
and that's also on me because we haven't really circulated it. I didn't really want to circulate it as just a list of items. I wanted to circulate it when we had some projected pricing around it so that we
Right.
were not just thinking about it conceptually.
and Paul, thank you for that too, because the wish list is also morphed into a need to have list too, based on all these inspections we've been going through. So
Right.
there's some much needed changes that have to come before the project closes out.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a priority back in May looking at work that would have had to get done this summer because we were working in that area and we were finishing that area.
Right.
And I think some of that we address, like the repointing of the brick above the courtyard in Royle being the most obvious one, because that was a clear kind of health and safety item, right? I mean,
That's right.
or putting the grass down in the courtyard because it wouldn't have made sense to wait to do that, things like that. So
do we have a sense? So looking at the remaining OC contingency,
yeah,
it's 1.3, 1.2 million per school. In terms of 12 months from now, obviously you've got there's more construction to be done. You had to put a ballpark on like what would be required for the current construction versus what might be left over for savings for some of these additional incremental scope projects.
I don't know that I could really put a number on it, but the upcoming phases through April of next year, I don't expect there to be a lot of surprises. Again, I think we might run into a couple of roof drains that have to get moved again, but there's not a ton of cost there. I don't see a lot to come up until April. And then when we get into, the demolition phases at Hindley and Holmes for next April through next summer, there possibly could be some things there. I know I've talked to Matt about getting ahead of some of the demo stuff that we have to do for demo at Hindley. We have, up until April before we start, but I want to get ahead of anything that we think we can kind of get in front of now. I know there were some issues with windows that we wanted to look at with Andrew, and some stuff that's kind of hidden behind that library that we're ripping off that building. So we are looking to try to get ahead of some of the stuff in the upcoming phases as well. So, but I here at Royle and even really at Hindley, seeing we kind of touched every room this summer. I don't know that we are going to really run into much over at Hindley. I think that would be a surprise. Like I said, maybe another roof drain problem, but again, it's
So Scott, to just jump in there, looking at the numbers, I mean, I think combined potential and approved change orders, each school is actually running pretty much the same at around $300,000 to date, right? And you've got roughly 1.6 contingency. So even if you were to spend that same amount over the balance of the project, and it's 600,000 for each school, that's still $1 million left in contingency if you were to, so
Per school.
per school. And I don't know if we'd expect the same level of change orders that we've already had. So yeah, I think, and right now we're running at you know, 1% of total construction costs for owner contingency, which is excellent. So we should have something to work with.
I don't think anything on the list was really big. I think one of the bigger items on the list, I think, is you guys came up with some, a front entrance design here at Royle.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Which is again purely aesthetic. Not that it's not important for the schools to look nice, but that kind of falls into that, bucket of the purely aesthetic as versus the, enhancing the educational experience or, health and safety. So.
Yep.
Well,
Well, we're going to get on that, Paul. To your point, we're going to get on that now that the dust is kind of settling over here. Travis and I have talked about it, so we'll jump on it quickly, and we're going to move on it and get things moving so we can really sort through it and see what we want to try to tackle right away.
Yeah, I appreciate it because, my feeling is that we are 65 to 70% through the risk. Yes, we have to build a wing at Royle. We could run into stuff there, but now is the time to try to organize this, put monetary costs against it, and then implement. Because if we're gonna do a new front design at Royle, it's gonna take Eric. I know he's got something in his hip pocket for it, but it's still got to be drawn. It's still got to be built. So
yep.
And the good news is on the new wing at Royle is the excavation and the footings are done, right? So yeah. A lot of times the surprises come when you start digging a hole in the ground, right? As we found out at Holmes, but
and then another item I think that came up at Royals, there was an AC that ran the front office that I think is in a little bit of disrepair that wasn't really picked up on. So I just got some rough order magnitude pricing in for that. So I'm gonna push that through as just rough order of magnitude. There was two different options, and we could decide which way we want to go with it.
Okay.
Scott, could I come by all three Friday morning? I just want to, is it enough dust settled? I don't want to get in anybody's way or take the stuff off people's plate. I just want to come walk them before the kids go.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be here.
Okay.
Anything else from anybody before we give you back the rest of your evening?
Can I say something?
Of course.
I just want to reiterate again, I know I've said this, that the job that was done at Hindley this summer, the last couple week or so, we've spent some time reconfiguring the rooms, and Matt and Kevin, and of course the custodians have been a huge help. We only have 2 classroom teachers changing rooms over December break and 3 over April break, which is like really nice. And a lot of that's due to some of the spaces that were opened up that we didn't previously anticipate being open at the start of the school year. Like every little room counts, and it's so this extra work that has been done has helped to ease a lot of concerns on our end as administrators, but also teacher concerns too. It's a nice phone call to make when you could tell somebody they're going to be in the same classroom for the entire year, when previously that wasn't the case. So all these little things have paid off. It's really appreciated.
Right, thanks, Ross. I know that Matt and Kevin did take on a lot of extra work this summer, and we were able to turn over some rooms that weren't supposed to be turned over this year, which is great.
It's huge. And plus they fed all of us with pizza tonight, which was
very good.
Which was nice too. So it's appreciated.
And before we did get off this meeting, I do want to thank Kevin Minrett and his team. His custodians have worked tremendously hard with us over these past couple of weeks to get the schools into the condition that they are in today. And we really appreciate all that help. It was a big help.
And
yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Paula.
I'd just like to add, I'd like to second the thank you to Kevin and to Scott and all of the teams. But I also want to thank this whole group because without your support and all of us working together, this wouldn't have happened. And I took Dr. Byrne through the other day, and I was literally almost skipping through the classrooms. It is amazing. So thank you to everybody for obviously we have got another year ahead of us, but it's so exciting to see what's been done already. So thank you for that.
Okay. I guess Natasha isn't really happy at Royal, so we'll just keep our fingers
I was
crossed.
just
and
I
hope
was
that-
just thinking the same
I
thing.
mean,
Better look at Royal.
We were-
Natasha,
we
it's
were-
perfect. It's perfectly fine to pile on, but if you're not happy, now's the
so
time to speak.
awkward. It's so awkward. I was just saying, my husband walked in with dinner. I was like, I was just on this meeting at 9:30 this morning and thanked everyone there. And now my colleagues just thank people. Do I get on and say the same thing? Like, it's so awkward. What do I do?
I'm sure Scott. I'm sure Scott and his team and Kevin Monrette and his team will take they're happy for it. So
we are thrilled. I can't say, I can't say it enough. And I guess you're right. I only see this team a couple times a month, but we're very grateful and thankful. And, luckily I do see Scott and Anthony a lot to be able to thank them and share my appreciation. So I only can echo what my colleagues have said without it being awkward. But thanks for calling out the awkwardness, Chris. I appreciate it.
yeah, anytime. All right, before it gets too weird around here, can I get a motion to adjourn? Sarah moves, Rob seconds. All in favor. Next meeting, September 17th. So just as a reminder, if I could get anybody want to ping me with an email as to whether they're willing to, any of the committee members willing to take one of the schools for open house, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
I've already volunteered Matt for Hindley and John for Holmes, and I'm going to be at Royal. So if that sways
I should be at
anybody,
Holmes that night. Yeah, Chris, you can probably put me down for Holmes that night.
Okay, perfect. And
What
I'll
is the
take
date
Royal.
again?
The 10th.
September 10th.
Okay.
I think
I can probably
we need to
do
nail down the
Hindley.
time. We need to nail down the times. Probably same as last year. We haven't discussed that yet, but
I can do
Paige,
Hindley.
I'm sorry, Paige, you said you can do Hindley?
I think I can do Hindley.
Paige,
I
double
can do
checking,
Hindley.
but-
I don't have anyone left in the elementary school, so go to your open house classes. You can join me in the cafeteria. I'll be there. Okay, sounds good.
All right, awesome. Thank you, everybody. That takes care of that.
great.
Everybody
Thanks,
have a great
everybody.
night.
Night.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thanks.
Bye.